yourself, please, Debbie.
Hello, my name's Debbie Ryan. I'm Director of Rehabilitation and Resettlement for G4S. I think the advantages of the TR programme are that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity really to look at probation services with a blank sheet of paper and start again, and look at the things where we can use modern innovations and modern technologies and modern systems to try and transform the system without the restrictions that have been in place previously, whilst of course making sure we manage public protection and risk appropriately. I think the other advantages are it's the opportunity for all sectors to start joining up. It's really a great opportunity for big organisations, small organisations, private sector, public, voluntary sector, all to start working together to the benefit of the communities really, so that we can deliver local solutions that are actually what's needed in that place as opposed to something on a national scale. The disadvantages, like any other programme, this is a change programme and it affects a whole lot of people. It affects people in probation who are going through a transition, it affects government and it affects other organisations that are bidding. And that's unsettling for people, and we've got to remember that at the heart of all of this, we've got a group of people who feel uneasy and unsettled, and that's going to take time to settle down. And whilst that's happening, we've got to look at the service provision underneath that, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to go home and make sure their bills are paid and everything else, and we've got to support people through that process. And it's that period of flux and change where we really have to focus in on, so people can get on with the job whilst that transition is happening. One of the other disadvantages is this is going very quickly and everything's happening at the same time. So the changes that are happening within government, the changes that are happening within probation, and the procurement process is all running on a very, very tight schedule. Doable, absolutely doable, but we've all just got to remain focused and be on track with it. I think for the very first time, I've worked in this industry for 28 years, and for the very first time, this programme puts the offender and the service user at the heart of the solution. It really puts the emphasis on them to change, and ultimately, unless they change, then nobody's going to benefit, and the payment mechanisms won't work and everything else. So there's a real incentive for people to focus on the individual needs of them offenders. And they can be part of this, they can help, and lots of organisations, you know, G4S especially, are looking at ways we can bring the service users in now to look at what we're designing to say, will this work for you? And then to be able to provide throughout the life of these contracts, then wraparound support that are completely tailored to the individual's need, so that we can work out what is it that's going to make a difference to your life, to stop you leading a life of crime. How can we get that support for you, and how can we maintain it so that you don't end up breaching and you don't end up back in custody? And that's a real opportunity. Absolutely. I think the key to this programme is exactly that. We have to look at what works. We have to look at what's already been working at a community at the smallest level and bring that in. I think in my experience, one of the most crucial things in turning an offender around is the relationship that offender can build with their support worker, whether it's in accommodation or employment or training. It's having that support. So I think it's really important that we look to the localities and look to them small organisations. There's no point big organisations not recognising that. There's no point somebody from London trying to deliver a service in Knowsley and pretending that they understand the issues that are faced on the streets of Knowsley. We've got to work together and bring in them local providers, and at G4S that's exactly what we committed to do. The more the merrier, as long as people can evidence what they're doing actually has an impact on reducing reoffending. And if they're delivering a service and they and they can't at this stage, then we'll help them through that process. I met a really fantastic organisation this week called Pinewood over in Liverpool actually. A very small organisation, pretty new start-up, delivering some amazing stuff. The passion in the organisation was fantastic, but as yet not evidenced about the impact on reducing reoffending. So we're going to support them to get some case studies together, get some data through the Justice Data Lab, so that they can actually see and start proving to all the big primes that yes, this works and is making a difference. Gosh, in the year 2020, these contracts will be really embedded in. I think what we're likely to see is an initial set of providers and an initial set of flux, and then things will start to settle down. I think by that time, we will have seen the magistrates and the sentencers come on board, so people will be used to issuing orders for people that put rehabilitation at the heart of it. If we get this right, and if everything works, in 2020 the prison population will be less. There will be a demand reduction on the system, and that can only be good news for everyone, because that means that public money is being better spent, but it also means it can be diverted away from the justice system into the areas we all want to see it being spent. So it can be diverted into education, into healthcare, and then we can stop that cycle. At the moment we're in a cycle where we're always spinning down. More offending, more money needed for prisons, less money for resettlement. If we can turn that into an upward spiral, and by 2020 we should be able to, then we'll stop that cycle of reoffending, and we'll have a much better place for us all to live at a community level.